Shabbat Shalom. All of us were taught in kindergarten the magic word. The magic word being please. Please is a stupid word. Don't get me wrong, it's an important word, it's kind of nice, but we overemphasize it to the neglect of the two-part, far superior, far more important phrase, which is meant to come shortly later. Thank you. Thank you. Why do we not call thank you the magic words? Why do we call please the magic words? Anyone have an idea how please became this fixation of pedagogy and parental teaching? What's that? It's a plea, but why would this gain so much emphasis in how we have our schools and how we raise our children? Why please, of all things? What's the magic word? How does this become? To be proper, to have goodwill manners. Yes, that's the entire package of etiquette and civility. But please stands out in our society. It's the antecedent to a request. If you're going to ask something of me, have the good graces to beg for it. It's to reinforce authority. It's to reinforce authority gently. You will notice that the people who are most passionate about reminding you that this is the magic word are usually interrupting your request. You know, Mrs. Smith, I have to go to the bathroom. What's the magic word? Bladder infection? No, before you get to do that, you have to pass the test to prove to me that you recognize you can't without having buttered me up and gotten my consent, because I am in a position of authority. So say please, and of course I will graciously grant your request because I am not a monster.
But we try to get children to say please to everyone.
We do try to get children to say please to everyone, but other people don't have the ability to turn to them and say, what's the magic word? Of course we want it to be universal, but the only people in certain positions get to demand it as a universal. And this is the opposite of what Judaism teaches us. There is a very famous phrase within this week's Torah portion, ve'achalta, ve'savata, uverachta. I always love the beautiful rhyming of the verbs that happen in Hebrew in these poetic sections. You will eat, you will be satisfied, and you will bless, which in context means express gratitude to Adonai. Doesn't say please before you eat. It says, say thank you after you have eaten. After you're satisfied, say thank you. Any ideas what the unique possible reasons our Torah might have for moving the emphasis from the prior to what you want to after you've got what you want? Bernie, yes?
So you gathered the source of energy, and now you wish to execute it in a positive way.
So you've gathered your energy, you've fed yourself, you are satisfied, you're now capable of things you couldn't before you ate. For those of us who don't remember, eating is actually a life necessity and wasn't always as easy as it is now. So certainly this feeling would have been very familiar to our ancestors up until the pre-modern world. And then say thank you. But I'm still left of why emphasize the thank you so much? Why make that the Torah level commandment as opposed to the please that comes prior to our eating? And don't get me wrong, we do that as well. We do thank God before we eat. It's just much, much shorter and less extensive. That's okay. I think I've got what you're trying to say, which is there is a fundamental spiritual recognition that happens after we have eaten, if we allow it, that is missing from before we have eaten. And that is taking the satiation, taking our fulfillment, taking, as I talked about a little bit more in my Lunch and Learn on Wednesday, taking the material satisfaction and recognizing that it has a spiritual origin. That our material ability to sustain our bodies is granted because we were given bodies, we were given the ability to process food, we were given the ability to grow or find food, and all of this has been happening thanks to the divine orchestration of the world from day one till day now. And by taking that moment to say thank you, we are opening up a spiritual revolution within ourselves to transform what we just did from being an animalistic activity to being a spiritual recognition. Before we eat, when our body is still hungry, when our body is still salivating like a Pavlovian dog, we are still very much rooted in the bestial part of our nature. And not that Judaism hates that element, don't get me wrong. We appreciate what it does for us and the joys it can bring to life. But we also recognize that sometimes that kind of thinking gets in the way of the big picture. Once we've leaned back in our chair and loosened our belts, we have a little more room within not just our body, but our spirit to recognize the divinity of what we have just experienced. So the thank you afterwards is a much more powerful opportunity for spiritual growth. It is also, says the Torah, a very important inoculation to our arrogance. That is to say, psychologically speaking, saying thank you is more powerful than saying please. And that includes not just saying thank you to God, but saying thank you to others in general. And here, I will join with you in saying that saying thank you to everyone is actually a very powerful technique for reminding ourselves constantly that I am dependent upon others, not in a hierarchical, authoritarian kind of way, but my life is made possible because other people do things that benefit me. I am not a self-made man. I do not live by myself in the middle of the wilderness, clawing my survival out of the forest. I am dependent upon others in 1,000 ways every single day. And the more I remember that, the more I will appreciate not only the people I come into direct contact with, who I have to give thanks to, but also the myriad of strangers that surround me, who, in some way, shape, or form, are doing things that make my life a better life. If they weren't there, my life would be impoverished. And so by training myself to say thank you, thank you, thank you, I am keeping my arrogance of I am myself and reliant only on myself and I did this and I owe no one anything, that we are inoculated against that toxic attitude. And then, finally, writing that same idea, Judaism is a religion of community. It is not just a religion of the individual. Even our individual spiritual paths are guided through the community, and thank you is the ultimate expression of deepening relationship. It is recognizing what someone else has done for you when you no longer need them. It is recognizing after the fact the gift they have given you when you're not looking for more. It is recognizing that we are not going to merely be a transactional moment together. It's not just, I want this, you give it to me, bye. It's, I want this, you help me get it, and I thank you, hopefully encouraging that this relationship will be a relationship rather than merely a transaction in order that we can just get what we want, rather than become the community we want. Thank you guides us strongly towards recognizing the fundamental humanity of being in relationship with God, with ourselves, and with a community, both of those that we know familiarly and those that are strangers to us. Please is still very important, don't get me wrong. Certainly, as part of our social etiquette, beginning a conversation with and a request with the word please is going to show the other person that you are a basically decent kind of person. And that is an important opener for any conversation. But if you want the conversation to go beyond the mere transaction, if you want the conversation to open up the doors for more than just polite civility, don't forget your thank you. Shabbat Shalom.